This is an informational video regarding the background lore and the story of Heartstrings, a series that I'm making in a game called Project Arrhythmia. It's lore that you can't otherwise get through solely the levels and the cutscenes that I or my friend provide. It's still possible to enjoy the story and the levels without watching this video, and videos I'm gonna make in the future. But it's more to simply enhance and give an appreciation for the world that my friend and I had worked very hard to create and breathe life into. Heartstrings is a story about emotion, heartbreak, family, and mental health. If you wish to abstain from spoilers, this is your only warning to click off the video right now. So, let's get into it. For simplicity's sake, let's call all of this country that Heartstrings takes place in to be called Arrhythmia. This name may be changed in the future to prevent confusion, but for now we're calling it Arrhythmia. Arrhythmia is an old country spanning hundreds or even thousands of years, ruled by a long-standing line of succession with the royal family. It's ruled over and governed by magic, and surrounding its worship of the heart. The king and queen before Pilot's takeover were King Sync and an ex-sage, Anemia. We'll touch on the sages in a bit. Anemia was a frail, sickly shape, but she had a strong will and spirit. She fell in love with Sync, and the two were eventually married. With time, they had a daughter named Wiccan. Wiccan was the princess, but what she wanted more than anything was to be a king, to take her father's place in the future. She used ritualistic blood magic to transform herself from a princess to a prince. But Sync did not agree that Wiccan was emotionally fit to be a king. Cast aside, bitter and angry, Wiccan instead went to become a knight and trained to be the best possible protector of the heart. But through his bitterness and rage, he eventually met and tutored a shape named Ophelia, who'd come from very far away, who Sync had deemed worthy to become a knight. Wiccan eventually fell in love with Ophelia, and her in turn with him. Through his sour demeanor and aftertaste of rejection with his father, he found solace in love with the soft-spoken and motherly shape. They were powerful together, and nearly unstoppable when working together. But everything changed when Pilot gave an offer to Wiccan that he could not refuse. The sages are a recluse group of magically inclined shapes who work to not rely solely on the heart's magic-feeding powers. They live high up in the mountains in their monastery. They aren't normally welcome to outsiders, and they're often cut off from the rest of the world and Arrhythmia. Magically powerful and wise, they are also the only group who know how to repair or heal the heart in the event it is injured or in pain. The Knights are a task force dedicated to protecting the heart with their life, blood, and soul. They are strong warriors, handpicked either by the king or the queen themselves, or by another knight who had chosen to take them on as an apprentice, though approval from the High Ruler is still necessary. There were many knights, at least a dozen or so. The main task force comprised of Wiccan, Ophelia, and Chip, who is owned by Starrlet. I'll put a link to her channel and her workshop page in the description. There are a few notable others who, unfortunately, never were able to make it into the cutscenes or levels for Heartstrings or were cut out entirely. But they are important to note as part of the main task force. Hollow, who is a hollow, ginger-colored square who is unaffected by the heart's emotional healing powers. And then Sunrise, who came from a far-off land in search of the healing powers of the heart, and eventually became a knight. Chip is one of the youngest knights, and he was chosen by King Sync to be one of them, and given Ophelia and Wiccan as his mentors. But Wiccan was angry at the clear favoritism towards Chip. Wiccan's training regimens were barely falling short of physical and mental abuse. He hurt Chip, and he rarely ever spared his apprentice a kind word. Ophelia, on the other hand, was much kinder than her counterpart. and instilled gentle love and wisdom to the young apprentice. She became almost a mother figure to him, and she provided the emotional healing that neither Wiccan or the heart could provide. Many of the knights ran off or were killed when the heart was stolen by Pilate. Wiccan chose to go with Pilate when the heart was taken, since his sole task was to remain with the heart and protect it. He figured it best to remain with the heart in order to protect it, even if it was taken by Pilate. Ophelia was killed by Pilate while protecting the heart from what she thought was an intruder in hell. Pilate took this as an advantage. He lied, and he told Wiccan that Hal had murdered Ophelia in order to get Wiccan angry enough to actively seek out and try to kill Hal as revenge. Chip had run off along with a few others. Most were killed either by Pilate or members of his court. However, Queen Anemia had no choice but to go into hiding back at the sanctuary with the sages while her husband, Cinque, was brutally murdered by Pilate. The heart was left defenseless at that point. The heart had been around in Arrhythmia as long as anyone native there can remember. For thousands of years since the kingdom's birth, it's a mystical, almost divine artifact that's quite literally the lifeblood of Arrhythmia. The heart has very powerful healing capabilities, both physical and emotional. It kept the entire kingdom from falling ill, and it heals wounds at a rapid pace. Everyone there lives long, fulfilling lives thanks to the heart. But there is a catch. The people there have become too grossly reliant on the heart, like a child that had never taken off their training wheels. Not only that, but the heart also produces and amplifies the effects of magic throughout the kingdom. Almost everyone there is born with inherent magical powers, and some choose to hone and use that power more than others. Of course, there's a rare few who are born without it once in a blue moon, but for the most part, magic is a part of everyday life there. If the heart were to disappear, the people would slowly die and fall ill, and their magic would wane and grow weaker and weaker until it fizzled out into nothing. Quite literally, the heart would begin to wither. The greatest artifact and the source of their kingdom's life would ultimately be its own downfall. Pilate took the heart, knowing of its healing powers. Pilate was in a lot of emotional pain and distress. He felt he had no choice. He got to the heart, and he took it in order to heal himself. But that wasn't enough. He had to keep it. So his great and immense sadness infected the heart and began eating away at it alive. Though it's not all dark and gloom. If the heart is just like a living organism, then it has methods to protect itself in the event of danger or a disappearance. Like any other body, it can produce white blood cells for preservation. That's where Hal comes in. And I know that canonically in Project Arrhythmia's lore, Hal is a nanobot, but solely in the world of Heartstrings, Hal is more of a spiritual being, connected directly to the heart, an emissary, if you will. Whenever the heart is in immediate danger, it will produce an emissary to protect and eventually restore it. Whatever the heart feels, Hal can feel as well. If the heart feels sorrow, Hal will as well. If it is in pain, Hal will feel as well those aches. They are an extension of the heart, and thus forcing them to strive to save the heart, not only for self-preservation, but for the preservation and prosperity for Arrhythmia as well. Although if and when the heart is saved and restored, this emissary will cease to exist since they are no longer needed. It's a tragic truth, but a fact nonetheless. This is all just the background lore of Heartstrings, and there will be videos in the future that explain the characters themselves more in depth. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. And if you're interested in seeing that in the future, or want to know when another Heartstrings level or cutscene comes out, you can subscribe to the channel. If you have Project Arrhythmia, it is highly encouraged to subscribe and play the levels yourself. You can always follow my Twitter at Noodlekin1. I post art there, concepts, and sometimes post videos of levels I'm making in the future. I hope you enjoy Heartstrings as much as I enjoy working on it, and I hope you have a nice day.